We are MythVision. Welcome back to MythVision Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Lambert, and today we're going to really poke fun at Casper the friendly ghost. Not really. Actually, we're going to have an interesting dialogue dealing with the epistemology of people's beliefs. And really one of those, coming from the worldview of Christianity, is to poke at the theistic one. Which that's not just Christianity. I mean, various monotheistic religions depend on this, and not just monotheistic religions, but there's the idea that a god or gods created the universe and everything in it. And there are various degrees in which this idea comes up, from theism, deism, pantheism, various different ideas. You guys are going to want to stay tuned, and you might want to use some of these tips, especially from the gentleman that I'm bringing on, when you're in your own everyday practices with family members or friends. Most of the time, family members are off limits. It's just difficult. But other people are open to these ideas. So with that being said, I want you guys to be introduced to my guest. Anthony Magnabosco, welcome to the channel, brother.
Hey. Thanks for having me back.
My camera doesn't look like I'm from 1983. And like the last recording,
it looks like 2025, and I look like I'm like 1999 or something like that. You've really set the bar pretty high. We were talking about cameras before I joined, and I think I'm going to do some shopping this weekend.
Dude, you deserve it. You should. And
I should, yeah. As many talks as these that I give, I need a little bit of a better camera.
I'm going to laugh if you go to Best Buy and they're going to ask you some questions about your camera, and they're going to Socrates your ass, and you're going to be like, and they're going to go, listen, yeah, why aren't you buying this camera? I don't understand.
I'll probably end up Socratesing them back. So
that's true.
How did you determine that this is actually better than that other model?
They're going to be like, dude, just don't buy the camera. Get out of my face.
just leave. Yeah, time's up.
Right? Okay, so let's start with this. First of all, I want to let everybody know, please go down in the description. Join his YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Guys, I've learned so much from Anthony's channel. If you haven't seen his material, you really should, because it's not just educational like we do at MythVision. This guy is at the park. He's in your face. Now, he's not in your face, but he's in your face, and he's saying, look, everyday Joe Schmo, do you think that angels are real? Let's ask about some things you might think are real. And very kind, good example to set on how to have conversations with people and to find out their epistemology, maybe have them internally work through their own ideas on what they think and why they believe what they believe. So
thanks so much. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lots of examples on my channel. I just uploaded one yesterday where I had recorded in December of 2019, but we talked about ghosts.
Oh.
And he was under the impression that ghosts are real and they're haunting his hunting cabin. So it made for a really good talk.
I love that. I have to say, I just interviewed a guy. Oh, by the way, I had the interview with Jesus. I know you probably
I was wondering about that.
Dude, you won't be able to stomach it. You're too much of a Socrates to even want to listen to it. I'm just warning you. You probably aren't going to be interested. It's an interesting thing. I was very polite. Let him have the ground. Didn't want to interrupt. The guy turned real south. I've got videos coming up about this guy. He's very passive aggressive, and very strange emails came after the way he was, like, everything was our fault. Like, dude, just crazy, like over.
Interesting.
Is
the video on your channel yet?
Yeah. The video that's coming of him, though, is with a guy that used to follow him. And this guy's new agey. The Jesus is like a new age Jesus who claims to be, alive for 2,000 years, but he was born 50 something years ago in an Australian body, which anyway, it gets real weird, right? Well, the guy who follows him also believes in strange things, superstitious ideas. Schizophrenia is not real. Those voices are spirits from the spirit realm that are talking to people. Like, that's the kind of level at which he believes. And I totally disagree. I tried to carry on the conversation, though, and I did a good job, I felt, on the upcoming interview. This guy goes into believing, spirits and mediums and personalities are more susceptible to medium type things, like the whole nine. And I wasn't going into a video about him. I was trying to deal with AJ, which is the guy name of Jesus in Australia. However, you get to see real easily when people have that kind of open-minded epistemology to whatever they want. There's no real way of testing some of this stuff to them. You run into AJs and you can think for a moment, oh, this might really be Jesus. So much BS can be sold to you because you have no way to have critical thought to challenge and test these things. So anyway, I didn't want to make that about the show.
No, it actually sounds really interesting. Okay. I'll have to watch for you to drop that other video then.
I definitely want you to see the guy who followed him, who got shunned by him and actually calls AJ out on some of his stuff. Yeah, so he doesn't agree with AJ anymore. Anyway, perhaps it would be effective for street epistemology to reframe the debate over the existence of God by focusing the discussion on analogous supernatural beliefs that don't carry as much baggage. In dumb terms, it's probably better not to call Yahweh out or Jesus out for a Christian. Let's talk about stuff they're willing to go and talk about. Yeah, that's ridiculous. The Christian can agree some of the stuff we're going to talk about is ridiculous. For example, shift the focus away from theism to the belief in ghosts. And someone on the internet seems to have coined a term for the belief in ghosts, apparently, and it's called, we were looking up the term, it's either Eidalism or Aidalism, Eidolism. So Eidalism or Aidalism, something like that. And
how do you spell it?
Eidolism. Eidalism. Yeah. So someone has already coined the term. And so we'll go ahead and show this here. This is the first slide. I want everyone to kind of track along with us as we go through this slide, because let's say that there are two types of ghosts. And you'll get where I'm going with this real quick, Anthony. And anyone watching should be able to catch this. There's two types of ghosts. One is analogous to the theistic God, and the other is analogous to a deistic God. A poltergeist is like a theistic God in that it's detectable. It's detectable, manifest entity that causes supernatural events. So evidence of the existence of a poltergeist is expected if one indeed exists. A regular ghost is like a deistic God in that it's undetectable, hidden entity that plays no discernible role in the physical world. So evidence of the existence of a ghost is not expected, even if one indeed exists. And I kind of want to make that analogy here, as you see in this slide. There was, I don't know if you know the channel Capturing Christianity. Cameron's like the head guy. He's a Christian.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
He's recently interviewed a priest who claims to do exorcisms and things like that.
You know, that showed up as a recommended video, and it has almost 500,000 views.
It's unbelievable how many people are attracted to that kind of information. But I kind of wanted to do that and give this comparison, all thanks to Stephen Nelson for these slides that you guys are going to see today. I appreciate your hard work, bro, in engineering these graphics so that we can have good visuals. But do you like where I'm heading with this already in terms of like?
I think yeah, it makes sense. Although I was going to say, I don't think that most people make these distinctions. So for example, the person that I interviewed and that video is on my channel, we used the term ghost, and he was describing it as an entity that is interacting with reality, which doesn't meet this definition.
Right.
So I just went along with what he said. I think it would be sort of problematic or maybe harm the conversation if I said, well, hold on a second, that's not really the right definition. You're actually talking about a poltergeist. So I just usually roll with people's definitions, but it's interesting to know that there's a distinction here. I never thought there was a distinction between the two.
Yeah, I'm fair. Hey, it's cool to say that the poltergeist is a ghost. Let's say one's more active and one's not, right? Because the theistic God and the deistic God are equally real according to those who believe in those ideas, just like a ghost and a poltergeist are equally ghost, but one manifests itself into reality in some sense to a point where we can prove, or it should have evidence to suggest it exists. And I feel like this is going to run theist back into a deistic pocket. I feel like they're going to be like, either that or they're just going to keep on with the, unless you have enough faith, it's just not going to appear. And it like, show me the evidence, right? The Bible has a lot of claims that should be provable to some degree, at least. Especially when it asks stuff like anything you ask in the name of the Lord shall, will a father give his son a stone? Ask and it shall be given to you. Like there's ways to test and it doesn't happen. So I just throwing out there that let's get into the second graph here because I want everyone to see this. The graphics are really good and we only have a limited time. So I'm trying to make your job easier so you don't have to overthink everything.
Yeah, it looks like you're putting me to work here.
Well, thanks to Stephen Nelson, man. He's always doing this.
Steve, thanks.
Thanks, bro.
Stephen.
In the common understanding of the concepts of theism and non-theism or atheism, one can conceptualize this in terms of a sliding scale of confidence in the existence of a god or gods. Theism or deism entails a relatively high level of confidence in the probability of God to warrant belief. So the non-theist simply believes there's a low probability of the existence of any sort of God. And I wanted to show this chart. What do you think about that? I mean, do you agree that statement's there? I mean, that makes sense?
I have to probably look at this a little closer. Some people get really wrapped around the axle when it comes to the definition of atheism, as I'm sure you are aware.
Yeah, that's actually why this is kind of being mentioned. This isn't
belief in the non-existence. Okay, I think this definition covers my definition, which would be the latter. It's the belief in the non-existence of God.
Okay, cool.
I'm comfortable saying that I believe that there are no gods. And put that under atheism.
I'm sure you know Steve McRae, or you've heard of him, have you?
Mm-hmm.
So he dies on that agnostic hill. And I just did a show. I just think I'd mention this. I've never met the guy. In fact, we're not even friends on Facebook. That says a lot if you're wondering, ladies and gentlemen. That means simply we haven't encountered each other, but I suspect we will after my upcoming show that I did with Tim Whitmarsh on Battling the Gods. And he is a classicist, but intelligent genius when it comes to Greek and these Greek stories. And we found that the term atheos is actually something, is atheos? Yeah, atheos. Atheist in Greek. It didn't start with Christians. He did a debate and he was arguing that it started with Christians, even though the term can mean the lack of belief in this God or the wrong God or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean there are no gods. But the Socrates trial, he firmly on video clearly indicated in the Greek there, that is absolutely the accusation of Miletus against Socrates, that he is an atheist, an all-out atheist. And Socrates is saying, no, I'm not. But he doesn't believe in, he's teaching the youth these other gods, and there's this accusation against him. But that means that term has existed far older than the Christian ideas, and Steve McRae was using that against people acting like what we mean by there is no gods is a new idea, and that that evolved over time. And yes, language changes, so there's kind of a give and take there. But anyway, that's not just the purpose of this. This is also the point of trying to poke at the theist to some degree. They're willing to go with the ghost, or they're willing to challenge ghost, but not their own epistemology. And so,
yeah. The other thing that jumped out at me at this graph is that it seems like I run into a lot of theists who would say that the theistic God is real and that faith is also required to think that it's real. So it's not just evidence that they have, but there's also an element of faith that's still needed. Whereas this chart seems to imply that the deistic God is only based on faith. I would argue that the theistic God, and I'm taking the arguments that theists would give, is that they say that there's evidence. They might say that it's all based on evidence, but most all say it's evidence and faith. Or some even say it's faith. But I don't think we need to quibble about that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you poked that though, just to point that out. I don't know too many deists. That's the interesting part.
You know, I met a deist on the trail a couple of years ago, and he said that he literally said he was a deist, but he admitted that he prays to the God, which I thought was really strange. And that's what we ended up talking about. Well, why would you pray to a God that's not interacting with reality? And I don't think he ever considered the question. And he paused for 30 seconds and he said, I'm not really sure, or something to that effect. And that was really the high moment of that conversation. So yeah, I don't run into a lot of theists or deists. I mean,
that makes me wonder, like, that's a good point. Is some of his theistic background kind of rubbing off into his deism there? Or
I think so. Or maybe, you know, he's in a culture where everyone prays and you pray to gods, and whether your God is a theistic one or a deistic one, he never made that distinction or drew that connection that, well, by definition, then you'd be praying you'd be praying to a God that doesn't really care that you're praying or won't be interacting or responding to your prayer. So why are you doing it?
That makes sense. No, that's kind of like I mean, that just goes against the idea, but I guess it's therapeutic to them. I don't know, you know what I mean? But yeah. I think it's theism rubbing off into the deistic worldview, because I don't really know any religions.
That's my sense too. Yeah.
Like
it's also possible that maybe he just didn't want to say what religion he was a part of. So he just opted to say I'm a deist just so he didn't have to give specifics. I don't know. Who knows what people are thinking?
I figure I'd say something about the poltergeist thing and the ghost too. Like the poltergeist, equate that to theism. And, you know, when I read the book, A Case Against Miracles, John Loftus. He goes
Loftus?
deep. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's easy to prove if there, I mean, like you would think a miraculous claim, right? Which is extra, it's something that would be supernatural. People who are arguing that, well, the reason why you can't test it and you'll never know is because it's supernatural. It's not natural. So there's no way to, test a supernatural thing. And I'm thinking to myself, there's ways you could do it, just split the damn Red Sea.
If it's interacting with reality, then there should be a way to test it. Exactly.
And so the poltergeist, speaking to Cameron from Capturing Christianity, in case you're checking this out, my friend, we would love to see this priest actually perform a legitimate exorcism. And the one way of knowing, because he claimed on that show that the person was speaking ancient Latin or something, like the demons are talking Latin. Okay, there's a way to test this. And notice nobody ever has any way of testing. Nobody's there to really validate what they're saying or suggesting. I mean, nothing. So why do you believe that, Yeah.
That's so queer. Yeah, I have to watch that video, I guess, maybe, and see what's going on.
I haven't watched the whole thing.
I don't know if I can stomach it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he's trying to pull with that. He's reaching at straws lately. He just did a video against Apologia on the 500 claiming.
Oh, yeah.
You know about that.
Yeah, I was seeing some. I was watching Doug's thing on that. Well, Apologia released it yesterday. Was it yesterday? And then I caught Doug's thing the other day.
Doug's hilarious, dude. I cannot tell you. He's just silly, man. He's just so funny, and I can listen to him.
We're talking about Pine Creek. So if anyone's watching that's not familiar, great channel. Check it out.
Let's go to slide 3. These are the 3 slides. After this, it's just the same slides. Okay, everybody. With respect to belief in ghost and poltergeist, one can conceptualize this in the same terms. Ateism or Edelism entails a relatively high level of confidence in the probability of ghosts existing. And non-Edelism is merely the inverse, where there's insufficient evidence to warrant belief. So the non-Edelist simply believes there's a low probability of the existence of any sort of ghost. You want to comment on that as it relates to atheism, and theism?
Well, I was expecting like an aedealism or something like that, but I'm content with this. No, let's see, non-belief in the existence. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
That's, I mean,
do you make a distinction between undecided? Like, can somebody be undecided but still be in? I guess you're not. What is undecided? Like right on the line? You're not sure if you're in one camp or the other?
I guess that's where we put the line. I mean, I know that Steve McRae would put himself in the agnostic camp, but he would probably say the low probability, that definition down below, applies to agnosticism. You see, because I don't know if he takes that absolute certainty, like a philosophical atheism position. Like, how do you know that there's no God? And like, are you certain? Theists do that all the time when they argue the definitions. They spend a debate over, is Christianity true? Ends up 30 minutes about the definition of atheism and theism, and how atheists, you say or you believe there's no God. That means you have faith there's no God, and that you're certain. What do you, all that kind of stuff. Why aren't you an agnostic? That kind of stuff. I'm just throwing that there. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so I make the distinction between agnosticism and atheism, one being about knowledge and the other one about being what you believe. So I would say that I'm both when it comes to ghosts. I'm a non-Edelist. I'm a non-Edelist and agnostic about whether I know it to be true or not. I'm undecided whether I know that they exist or not. I don't think you can ever know anything though either. Like the whole agnostic thing, it's almost like a weird label.
Right. It's a trap. I feel like
some sort of just applies to everybody. Well, if you are calling it undecided, then it makes a difference. But if you're talking about whether you know something or not, because I don't think anyone can know something. based on my definition of that word. The word just really makes no sense. But I do like using the word agnostic occasionally to mean that I'm undecided about it. I'm agnostic about what I want to have for dinner tonight. I'm fine using it in that way.
Yeah, I'm agnostic on the historicity, for example. I lean that there probably was a historical Jesus based on some of the things I can dig into, but I am agnostic on the absolute, like, where I place myself. I can't really say, oh, I'm this or that. It's my leanings seem to be it's more probable there was a guy, but nonetheless, I'm open-minded to the other side. And I think a lot of theists don't like atheist or atheism for this reason. They think that saying you're an atheist, saying that you're not a believer in God, you're making an assertion, not allowing open-mindedness for there being one. And that's the scary part. They think you're taking, you just want there not to be a God. Listen how you sound. Insufficient evidence for me. And I have no reason to believe in something. So I lack the belief therein. It's just, that's the kind of thing it gets trapped in. And I don't know.
So what was the point of him putting this thing together? There's some utility, I guess, in comparing theism to Edelism.
Yeah. So if you were to take the idea that you deal with theist and deist and such, all right, the point is, technically, if you were to compare, theism is your poltergeist. Deism is a common ghost. It doesn't manifest into the physical world where it's measurable, testable. It's all subjective, so to speak, but you might hear it, or it's something that you think is there. There's a force, there's an energy, whatever it could be. Deism might possibly somehow fall into that category. Or pantheism might play a part in that as well. Whereas atheism, or the non-Edelist, someone who doesn't think that ghosts exist until there's good sufficient evidence to test or prove or give me good reason to believe, is comparable in a way. So you could start with ghosts instead of Jesus, for many people, because Jesus is sacred and they don't want to go there. So you could say, well, Casper, do you believe Casper exists?
Yeah. I found some utility in surfacing potential claims to discuss. Like if I'm on the street and I ask somebody if they want to talk about a belief, and then they maybe suggest or they select that they want to talk about God, I might ask them where they stand on other claims like ghosts or aliens, something to compare it to. And you can watch their reaction. They may just roll their eyes and say, oh, ghosts are just so far-fetched, but angels are real. So it's neat to see them making a distinction between the different types of claims, because then you can compare their justifications, their methods as well, and see, can we use that same method that you're using to get to your God to get to this idea of a ghost?
Good point.
And when a person realizes that the same reasons and methods could be used to confirm to the same degree of confidence that something that they think is silly is factually correct by using their reasons and methods, that's when it perhaps can dawn on them that there's something wrong with their reasons and methods.
I think that is a safe way, and the way you do it is really, really comfortable to them. I'm not going to say they're not feeling the pressure. I think anyone with a little common sense knows what you're doing in a way. They can't really understand what you're doing in the way that you're doing it a lot of times, but they kind of feel the pressure. They know that there's a serious question coming. And I think I've watched a lot of your videos. I don't think there's a single person who didn't realize at some point early on, okay, this is getting, touchy. You know what I'm saying?
This is getting too close to a nerve. Yeah. You have to be careful though, too, because sometimes when I'm rolling out topics to suggest, and I say we can talk about karma or ghosts or God, I've had some people get upset because I've equated God with those other things. Like, how dare you equate my God with ghosts, which is so ridiculous, for example. So you have to be kind of careful, but most people aren't too sensitive about it. Many people who believe in gods also believe in ghosts. That's something also to consider. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's just my favorite religion. It's my flavor. Don't mess with it. But that is an interesting way if you carry yourself the way you do in an epistemological way on the street doing that, you could potentially get them to see Why do I think that? And maybe they're so biased. I mean, this happens that they'll just concede, well, maybe ghosts are real. How do you know they're not? And then they get like, but you're dealing with epistemology. So you're really getting to the core of why people think these things. So
we do when we're asking these questions. You may also, I've had a few times where people, they believe in a God, but they also believe in ghosts or something. But they don't want to talk about the God belief. That's just a little bit too sensitive of a topic. And then we opt for the God claim. But the big hidden secret of street epistemology is that it really doesn't matter what claim you explore when you ask questions, because you're walking the person through the process of looking at their views and looking at their reasons and their methods, and then asking them, are you comfortable with that? Is that good enough for you? And you've given them a template that they can use for other claims, including their God claim.
Right.
So don't get discouraged if you really do want to talk to people about why they think God is real, but they don't want to, but they're comfortable doing other topics. Just continuously explore their claims with them. And then ultimately they'll probably be comfortable with you using it on their God claim, or they may even start using it on their own because you've now taught them how to interrogate their views.
And that's what we really want, is to give them the tools to go fishing for themselves. A lot of times this is very sensitive material. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. Let me pull up here this. Let me read this and get this out of the way, because I think some of this material is really important to go over. If an Eidolist, ghost believer, claims that a poltergeist exists as manifest entity causing detectable supernatural events, then a lack of evidence would be evidence for absence. That's a testable claim. If you have a poltergeist in your house, I should be able to come over and see it and become convinced that it exists. If an Eidolist claims that a ghost exists as a hidden entity, that this is the definition, of course, that we're using, entity that plays no discernible role in the physical world, then a lack of evidence would not necessarily be evidence for absence. It's not a testable claim if the very definition of ghost entails that it's undetectable. So we went over slide 1. I'm pulling up slide 3 again, and then we'll pull all slides down at the end to just have a back and forth before we close out on this, because this is always interesting material, and you give so many ideas to us on what we're interested in, hearing. So here's slide 3. We're skipping 2 again, going to 3, and 3 says, and this is what we're saying on this: I can have different levels of confidence and doubt with respect to poltergeists and ghosts. For example, I can be very confident that poltergeists most certainly do not exist, while merely lacking a belief in the existence of ghosts that are hidden and undetectable. For that matter, I could also believe in human souls without believing that they can survive outside of the body after death as disassembled spirits. And that gets into a touchy one. Would you like to comment on that a little?
About souls?
Yeah, and the way that we're using it and comparing, just trying to use an analogy. It's not a direct Xerox example, but souls. I mean,
yeah, from the conversations I've had with people, I think most people think that the soul is a unique part of them, that it's part of their identity. There's nothing to be afraid of, and it's the part of them that goes on after their body dies. I don't know if many people tie the soul to a ghost. I'm not exactly sure how people relate those two together, but there was something unique about that slide that I noticed.
Do I need to pull back up?
Can we please?
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like it's almost being framed that as you lack confidence. See, I see confidence and doubt aren't opposites. I think confidence is a scale, and then doubt is what is the feeling that you experience that moves you up or down on that level.
Okay.
So, because I can doubt something but still have a high degree of confidence. So I don't know. Maybe I'm quibbling too much about it, but I think
you're worried people are going to come behind this video and they're going to try and psychoanalyze every little term. So you're being careful.
No. I'm not too worried about that.
It's okay. I mean, we can
get back to the soul discussion, but I'm a little hung up on this idea that if I have absolutely no confidence, it means that I have all this doubt.
Are you kind of equating? Let me break this down a little to get your thoughts, because I think I get where you're coming from. Rather than being confident up here, you kind of have some confidence that this thing probably doesn't exist based on having zero evidence of it being there. I mean,
yeah.
So that would put you in a more stronger, and I'm not saying you're in strong atheism or if you're in the lack of belief, therefore atheism definition terms that people love to use. However, you're highly confident without any, we just don't have good sufficient evidence to say there's a God. You're pretty confident at this point. Hey, until I'm knocked off my high horse, you think I'm on a high horse and my lack of belief in God, I'm confident there's probably no gods existing. You're using doubt there where that says doubt. You're pretty confident actually that there's no Eidolist or ghost or there's no poltergeist. You're pretty confident in that until you have evidence otherwise.
Yeah, I guess I would just advocate and say you could probably just get rid of the word doubt there. Like doubt, I think, is the vehicle that drives your level of confidence. It's not the opposite of confidence. But I think I'm just quibbling, over a minor point.
It's okay, man.
I tend to do that. Sorry.
It's okay. All right. Final slide. And then we will have our open discussion. And I hope you guys enjoyed the slides by Stephen. Let me know what you guys think, of course. We're going with slide number 2. And I'm going to read something here, and then we're going to have open discussion. So slide 2, likewise, I can have different levels of confidence and doubt with respect to a theistic or deistic God, respectively. For example, I can be confident that Yahweh most certainly does not exist, while merely lacking a belief in a deistic God. I can be very confident that a poltergeist does not exist. However, if there are ghosts, I'm lacking a belief in a ghost, and that's the comparison here, or some amorphous force controlling the universe like gravity. So it would seem that theists would have the burden of proof to demonstrate the existence of a theistic God, and non-theists have no burden of proof for a null hypothesis. Many theists claim that the world is haunted by poltergeist-like entities, such as Satan and demons who possess people, or you talked about angels, and make them levitate. And this is talking about that show on Capturing Christianity with the priest, and make them levitate and speak long-dead languages like Latin. And if we're talking about a ghost-like deistic God that by definition leaves no evidence of its existence, a non-theist may appear close-minded by requiring sufficient evidence of the existence of a hidden God. But having an open mind doesn't necessarily entail that a person is leaning towards theism or even agnosticism. Non-belief can still be a sliding scale if you're simply not convinced yet by the current state of evidence. So there you have it. What do you think about that? Do you agree? Sounds good?
I guess it sounds pretty good. I kind of quibble about the definition of atheism, but I think even more fundamentally, before you get into a discussion about agnosticism and atheism, you should probably get people's definitions of the word belief and know. Because I think a lot of atheists, prominent ones, when they think of the word belief, they think that it means something that I think is true. That's the definition that I think a lot of atheists are starting off with, that I have to say that I don't believe that there are any gods, because if I said that I held a belief on that topic,
Right.
then I'm saying that it's real. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I see a lot of atheists fighting about this, that I lack the belief that there's a God. They'll say that I don't have the belief. But if my definition of a belief, I actually wrote this down. You
write a lot of things down in case
I do. Yeah, I have this thing right here. My definition of a belief is the personal awareness of a concept. So the second I'm told that there's a such thing as a ghost, I now have a belief about ghosts. It doesn't mean that I believe that they're real. It just means that I have a memory stored in my brain about ghosts, and it's based on whatever I've been told about them. So I think a lot of people are under the impression that if you say that you believe in something, you're saying that you know it to be true. And that's why I think a lot of people say, well, no, I just lack the belief. I don't have the belief. Right. Well, you do have a belief about that topic. That's what I mean when you have a belief. It's not an indication of whether or not you think that it's factually real or not.
Like Bigfoot.
And that's the distinction that I think gets muddied a lot when we talk about agnosticism and atheism.
I believe there's no Bigfoot. I mean, it's simple.
Right. I have a belief that there's no gods. I have a belief that there is no Bigfoot and that there are no ghosts. That's a belief that I hold. I don't lack a belief. I hold a belief about those things.
Are you ready to say that what your belief is a religion?
What? Where'd you get that?
Tell me you haven't heard Christians say your belief in there not being a God, atheism is a religion.
Ask them what they mean by the word religion.
Right.
How are you defining it? It's a group of people who adhere to a certain line of thought on a particular topic.
Right.
Okay. I mean, your definition of religion. We really get wrapped around the axle on the definition of atheism. And whenever there's three things, the idea, this concept of atheism, we get really wrapped up around the definition of that when we probably don't need to get all worked up about it. And then what was the other one? Oh shit, I'm drawing a blank. Atheism, religion. Mm-hmm. So like you guys are just all part of a religious group or something. Okay, well, how are you defining it? And then the other one is morality, that you can't be good without thinking that this is true. These are like the big three things that I notice frequently in conversations with atheists that we really get perturbed about, that we probably don't need to be.
Right. We
just need to work out our definitions beforehand. And more than likely, they're not painting as bleak of a picture on us as we think that they are. With the morality one, they are. They're like, you just can't be good without thinking that this God is real. Well, no, that's really, how many times have you heard that one?
Oh my gosh, bro.
But as far as like the atheism stuff or that you're part of a religion, just hear them out, figure out how they're using their words, let them hear how you're defining your words, and more than likely you can easily overcome it.
Do you ever stumble across people in your day-to-day with what you do? I mean, out, in the park or wherever it might be, who knows something about something when it comes to this, and they've definitely studied apologetics or something, and you've encountered them. You ever have that happen?
A few.
How do those encounters turn out? Do they usually end up? I'm sure they sense it much quicker than others, and they're like, "Oh, I know what this," and they're like ready to combat you.
Sometimes people will use words or something. They'll say presuppositional. Like whoever uses that word, other than maybe somebody who's into apologetics. So sometimes you notice certain words that people will use that lead you to think that maybe they're a little bit more knowledgeable on the topic of religion or debating or something. I find it kind of funny, but it's like it's not a big deal. It's not an impediment to the conversation usually.
Oh, a big word, impediment.
Impediment.
No, this is fun, man. I really wish I was there, closer to you. We could go out there for a day and like explore. And I'd like to see.
I'm done doing that. I don't want to do that anymore.
How long ago was it when you stopped doing that? Like going out every day?
February of 2020.
Well, when everything COVID, right? When that all hit?
Pretty much, but I was already kind of winding down anyways. I only went back. I went back to the campus 2 more semesters, primarily to meet up with other people that I've spoken to before for follow-up conversations. That was my primary motivation for going back. It's like, damn, I've already had 2 or 3 talks with this person, and I want to have that one more talk with them. So I would go out there and initiate talks with people on the off chance that those other people would be coming by. But I think I've got so many videos now. I don't know. I don't even think it's necessary to go out. There are so many other venues where you can be doing this. Mm-hmm. Omegle, Clubhouse, Discord. So it may not even be necessary to go out and do it. In fact, I was thinking about maybe putting a call out for people who are struggling with family members or friends who are into QAnon.
Oh, yeah.
So like specific topics of the day that are really troubling a lot of people, and talking with people like that in video chat, maybe having 4 or 5 conversations recorded and then release all of them in one shot, something like that.
That sounds
I don't know. So even though it'd be fun to go out with you and do some talks, unless it's like an extenuating circumstance, I'm probably pretty much done with it.
Okay.
I have all my equipment over there though. It's still there.
You're ready to rock when it's
just
time.
Charge up the batteries and go. I could go if I wanted to.
Tempting. Let me ask you this. With all these street epistemology, which I really, man, I just opened the door to this stuff, and it's really interesting how you guys, it's all like stemming from like Socrates type of, let's go question the hell out of people and just see what they say. Now, he probably really pissed some people off. I suspect apparently he wasn't nice about it the way
killing him.
Yeah, I don't know though. I can't imagine. I haven't read enough to know, but I'll ask you this. This is interesting. We talked about ghosts. You mentioned aliens and ghosts and all this stuff that all the time people believe in weird stuff, spirits that linger after people die. Like, it's funny actually, and I don't mean it in a derogatory sense. Like, it's like, whoa, we'll believe in almost anything. It's so interesting. Have you ever convinced anyone on the spot, actually convinced them from one position, one worldview, to really come over to another worldview? Have you ever actually walked someone through that, or at least through follow-up discussions with them, they started going, you know what? It all starts to make sense now. I think you're right.
Yes and no. Like, so I had people take another look at their views. So I'm not convincing them of anything. This is my argument. My stance is that they're the ones that are they've convinced themselves that they're correct, and they're the ones that are necessary in order to convince themselves maybe that they're not as correct as they thought that they were. So it's kind of up to them. So I don't really, like, I'm pushing back a little bit, just like on your slides. Like, I quibble about little things like that. I don't know if I could convince somebody that they're wrong.
Right.
I might be able to help somebody take another look at their views and help them discover that they're mistaken, but ultimately they're the ones that have to change their minds. I've had some people change their minds on the spot, on camera. There's one video, I think the guy was an atheist, and he said that he believed in karma. And then I asked him to define it. I think I first asked him, what is your or how confident are you that it's true? And he gave 100% or some, I don't know. I may not even asked him his confidence, but he said that he thought it was true. And then when I asked him to explain how it works, or can he define it, he attempted the definition, then he stopped and said, wait a second, I don't even believe that. That's just bullshit. So just the act of explaining it was enough to push him over the edge. So I didn't convince him. He did that. But I've had countless, it's probably countable, but I've never counted it. Lots of people, either on camera or off camera, would reach out to me later and say, yeah, I don't believe that anymore. I've started questioning more because of the questions that you were asking, and I just can't hold that belief to be true anymore. So yeah, that's absolutely happened. And there are some videos on my channel. I need to create a playlist called, I think I actually have one. It's called Repeat Encounters. So if anyone wants to see talks that I've had with multiple people, the same people multiple times, those are in a playlist on my channel.
And usually the discussion, of course, progressed. You only get like 5 minutes or so with these people, sometimes more, I suspect.
Sometimes more.
Yeah, but you really pressure them to get that 5 in. And then if there's a follow-up, it's like, man, dude,
strong
just
arm.
Be honest, you have a gun there. Everybody knows.
Yeah, they're under the gun. Yeah, most people, they agree to do a 5-minute chat. I think maybe they kind of underestimate what could actually happen in that amount of time. But you have to remember, they've had this belief for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years, and I'm getting 5 or 10 minutes with them. So you have to be realistic about what you can expect. However, you can still leave people with some unanswered questions that will cause them to think about their belief and change their mind. So that's why it's not futile. Like, I'm very optimistic about this approach. I'm pessimistic about how long it's taking for it to catch on, but I'm very optimistic about the efficacy of it. Yeah.
Let me ask you, in light of the slides, in light of the ghost idea, do you think that's a good idea? I mean, I know you use UFOs and maybe you use ghosts, but do you think that analogy is really a good one to use on the street when you're talking to someone, equating the theistic, deistic, and of course the non-belief in these things, to analogize, if you will, to the belief in the Bible's God or whatever it might be, poltergeist, back and forth, going back and forth with that? What do you think?
I think it could be helpful because You have to be careful though, because some people might be insulted by the comparison. I think we talked about that earlier. But it can be useful because they likely know people who think that ghosts are real. So it could have some utility, I suppose, but I wouldn't get too locked up in it. Like, oh, I absolutely have to use ghosts as a comparison. You can even ask the person if there's an equivalent belief that people have contrasted their God claim to that they think is more accurate than ghosts or something. If you get some pushback.
I could see a theist actually running with that analogy and actually trying to say, yeah, poltergeists are real. Have you not heard of them?
Yeah, that's the risk.
Demons. Yeah.
That's the risk that you run by like it's you can get lucky and find somebody who's like, oh yeah, ghosts are completely made up, but my God is real. Okay, then you're good. But it might be more fruitful if you have during the rapport building stage where you're just kind of getting to know the person, you can be listening to what they instantly dismiss as far-fetched. And then that could be your comparison.
Yeah, because then you can use that against them in their own mind, not because you're attacking them. That's so unique about what you do. It's not to win an argument. It's like, you just said though, and I'm not, dude, I don't care. You believe what you want, but you just said that ghosts, no. But if they want to redefine it, they might try to argue, well, ghosts are demons actually. So no, you called them ghosts, but I don't believe in ghosts.
True.
I believe they're spirits or demons or angels or.
Yes, exactly. They might quibble about what, just like the definition of poltergeist to ghost. Like I never understood that there was a distinction between the two. I've guessed sometimes. I've taken the risk, like in this last video that I uploaded where we were talking about ghost. I asked him because he thinks ghosts are real because his dad told him that that's the ghost of your aunt that's rocking in the chair and turning on the water off and on and all this stuff. So I asked him if he would still take his dad's word for it if his dad had explained that it was leprechauns that were drawn to the activity in the house when they came to visit. And he said, well, no, I'd need evidence then if that was the case. Now I took a risk. There's a small chance that he could have said, well, leprechauns are real too. I'm part Irish and that's a big part of our culture. And of course, leprechauns are real. They're just very rare here in the United States or something. You never know what you're going to get. You'll often be surprised at what people believe.
That's actually a great example. And, I try to place myself back in the mindset when I was believing in strange stuff. And I can see based on knowing now about hyperactivity or hyper agency activities and stuff and how our brains are working naturally. And for me, like if you were to ask me and I was still a Christian, I could play the game in my head. And you could say, Derek, that ghost that you said that turned the water off in the rocking chair, who is it? Or what is it? It's a spirit of one of my ancestors, right? Or somebody I know, or a spirit of one of my loved ones. That's because we put agency and our own little personal subjective experience here into things like that. So when you say a leprechaun, you might be hitting the wrong Irish guy, but unlikely. Most likely it's someone who in the mind of someone based on what we know evolution wise and hyperactivity and all this good stuff scientifically we now know, they're just projecting agency into things that potentially didn't happen at all, or who knows, wind might have blown and actually caused the rocking chair on the front porch outside the rock. I mean, oh no, it was inside. There was no wind blowing. I mean, come on. It's like,
by the way, that reminds me of a little tip. Like I think at one point he said, well, the rocking chair would only rock when the cows came home, something like that. So I'm immediately thinking, well, cows are pretty big and they could rumble the ground and that can transfer to the decking, to the chair, or maybe as they're rushing in, there's a breeze from that's coming in. And so it's tempting to want to give excuses for them to consider explanations. I mean, but don't do that. That's one of the worst things that you can do. You'll make your conversation partner defensive. You need to find out what excuses, or not excuses. Why do I keep saying excuses? What explanations they would be willing to entertain to explain the phenomena other than what they think is the case. So you can try that.
Interesting.
You follow me?
Yeah, no.
Like, don't just say, well, did you check the gas line? Like, don't be Mr. Fix-It. Try to understand how they ruled that stuff out.
Right.
But don't give alternate explanations. Just figure out how they can be so sure that they're right.
Let me give an example then. All right, so it rocks only when the cows come home. Anthony, how would you? I'm him. It rocks every time the cows come home.
Yeah. So his argument would have been like, my aunt would always sit in that rocking chair, and she would be sitting out there when the cows came home, and it was like it meant a lot to her when that happened. And now when the cows come home, the chair rocks. I might
What'd you
ask.
say? Yeah.
Well, I think in that instance, we explored how he's sure that it's ghosts and not leprechauns. And the way that he could be so sure is that, well, my dad told me that it was my aunt who died and is sitting in that chair. So rather than saying, well, have you considered this as the cause? I use that, we call it an outsider test, where like, if your father had said it, that it really was leprechauns, would you as equally be willing to accept his explanation as you are today, that it's the ghost? Or in this case, I guess it'd be a poltergeist, right?
This is wild, bro.
And he said, no, I would want evidence in that case. So the next question is, well, why do you think that you would be willing to accept his explanation saying that it was a ghost, but not leprechauns? What is it about? And that's what usually when people, and I think he even took 10 seconds to think about it. And like, I don't know. And then at that point, he started looking kind of defensive and acting embarrassed, which is problematic if you want somebody to think about their views. And at that point, I was like, maybe we should just wrap it up and end it now.
Yeah, you feel it. You can tell. He can feel it. You can feel it. You guys can tell. I mean, because the poltergeist is telling you guys what's going on. No, I'm just kidding. No, but we definitely we can
now
see.
If he persisted and say, well, no, it's absolutely happening, then I would probably ask him, how did you rule out other explanations? Or if there was another explanation, like, is it always ghosts, or are there 10% of the time where it's not the aunt that decided to sit in the chair and it could be something else? Have you ever considered that maybe there was one evening where the ghost didn't sit in the rocking chair as the cows were coming home? What might be the next best explanation in that case? I guess it could be, well, the way that this is structured, the cows get really close to the house and it could have shaken the decking, and maybe the chair. I suppose that's possible.
Or there's a breeze that comes in at a certain time of day.
Right. So hopefully you have a fairly open-minded conversation partner where they're willing to entertain other explanations. And then it's just a matter of, how do you think we could determine if it was the ghost sitting in the chair, or it was something else, like the cows rattling the ground, shaking the ground that rattled the decking that got to the... What do you propose that we might be able to do to test for something like that? Is it testable? What would it look like if it was something other than what you think that it is? And that just kind of gets the mind rolling. And again, this is up to them to determine if the reasons that they're giving justifies his high degree of confidence that it was real. Like, he gave I didn't check with him afterwards to see where his level was. I almost didn't. I think maybe at the time I just couldn't bring myself to asking it, because it seemed pretty obvious that his belief just toppled.
All right, you're done. You're deflated. Have a nice day, sir.
I think we're done now. Here's a puzzle piece and a card, and you can reach me if you need to.
Wow. How often do you get reached out to? Like
not as often as I'd like.
Yeah.
Maybe 5-10%, maybe 5% of the time.
What do they usually? Do they ever reach out to you like you're wrong, or do they ever reach out to you like it's usually because they want to like learn more from you, or you impact?
Usually they want to know, what am I planning to do with the video?
Okay.
That type of thing. Like, maybe they're a little embarrassed by it, possibly, or they felt that they could have done better. I get a lot of that. Like,
let's do it again. Let's do it again, man.
Can we do it? I've had that happen. People said, like, let's just scrap that first interview and let's just do a brand new one. Like, oh, okay, we can do that.
Do you actually do that though?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. And does it go just as like almost the same, or you go deeper in the follow-up?
We usually go deeper in the follow-up.
It's like, did you really want to do this video? Are you sure? Yeah. I'm going to do way better this time.
We can go again if you want to.
Turning up the notches here.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, what are you doing now in life? Like, what's your projects right now you're trying to do? And plug yourself, if you don't mind, for the audience.
Yeah, right now I'm working on, in fact, I was just working on it. We're developing a course to teach street epistemology to people. It'll be a self-directed course. So you or your followers can go through. We're going to have like 25, 22 modules, something like that. Like the right mindset that you need to be good at street epistemology, how to build and maintain rapport, the ethical considerations that you should keep in mind, how to identify the claim, getting to the reasons, identifying the methodology, how to wrap up a conversation, end to end. That's what this course will take. So my primary focus of this year is to work with a great team that we have. Oh, they're so good. We're putting together a really good self-directed course. And then ultimately that will be a web app. At the moment, it'll just be sort of like a pretty stupid web page just with text, but ultimately it'd be an interactive thing. And we'll be relying on people from the community to help us write those modules as well as test them, and maybe even give support for the people that are going through and taking the course, where if they're stuck on a module, they can go to the community that we have and get feedback. Like, hey, I'm really stuck on question 7. Can you help me out?
That's awesome. So is there a way, like website, all that? Can I put that down in the description and they can help you that way if they're interested or get involved?
If they're interested in the course, like helping with the course, the best thing to do, regardless of your level of interest with street epistemology, I think would be to go to the Discord server that we have.
Okay.
If you go to the streetepistemology.com website and go to communities, you'll see an invite link to the Discord that we have. Introduce yourself, say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about this course, and then we'll direct you to the right channel.
Cool deal. Well, that'll be down in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, are poltergeist real? Are ghosts real? Or do you need more evidence to believe in a ghost? Are you willing to allow, are you willing to say, no, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in poltergeist, but not willing to say, well, that guy, Derek, doesn't believe in God. He wants to look for natural explanations. He thinks there's most likely a plausible natural explanation for things. He's wrong for that. But then we bring up ghosts and it's like, where do you draw the line? So I do this, and I'm trying to do this with a kind person. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to people. But I really do want to have people maybe test and see, is there a natural explanation? Because, I can entertain Spinoza's God. I can entertain all is this source of something or whatever. Yeah, that's cool. But I also know that I can project, and I know that there are hyperactive agencies that cause me to think things are there. And until I'm proven otherwise, sometimes I assume the door slams. Oh, that was a human. Until I find out that there's a windstorm outside that actually caused my front door to slam wide open or shut. And then I'm like, whoa. There was a vacuum in the house that caused my door to slam. It wasn't a ghost. Interesting. We assume agency until we prove otherwise. And so I hope people will take what Anthony's saying, using this method to kindly interact with others you disagree with, because that's the number one purpose. I mean, we can all Aaron Ra people. We could go yell and scream at theists. I'm just being funny. Aaron's actually a big teddy bear. It's Aaron, actually, Aaron Ra, but he's a big teddy bear if you're on the same side as him. But if he thinks you're spouting BS, man, he's gonna just you're full of So everybody go down in the description. Check out his YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you guys think of the video, and if you have any particular ideas you definitely want to hear from Anthony. Look, you could find a way to reach out to him. You could, ask a poltergeist to come to him and, somehow, I don't know, reach out to his heart. Anthony needs salvation.
I used to really struggle with discussions about ghosts. Like, I used to be stymied. I didn't know where to go with the questions when it first happened, to the point where I would be fine talking about any other topic, even God, besides ghosts. I didn't want to even talk about it because it was such a weird, nebulous topic. But after you do a few of them and you start to realize the typical trajectory that those conversations can have, you can have really good, productive conversations with people about ghosts and use it as a vehicle to explore deeper beliefs like God's, like you're proposing.
Wow. Some people are more open to it. Like you said, just sense that. You'll know whether or not they're not comfortable or are comfortable, and definitely take his epistemology courses when they come out. If you guys go to the Discord, you can get involved, find out what's up. And just so you know, I've been channeling this entire time Steven Nelson, the man who created these charts here. This whole time, it wasn't even me talking. This was Steven Nelson. So prove me wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks a lot, man, for joining. And let's do this Derek. Again. I had to do something, right? I was like, okay, we're coming up with Shannon Q on the 1st of March. Matt Dillahunty's coming on. We're going to talk ghost and all sorts of stuff as well, probably with him. I'm not certain. I'm still planning what I want to do. But with you, I said, man, Steven Nelson had a good idea. And he said, let's see about comparing poltergeist, ghost, and then theism, deism, atheism, and stuff, and see how that works out. So,
yeah, could get some traction. You never know.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we are MythVision.